Welcome everyone, thanks for tuning in. We're gonna get started in 1 or 2 minutes. Feel free to get a glass of water, a cup of coffee, if it's the morning time in New York City, or some tea in the afternoon if you're abroad. Hey y'all, thanks for joining us today. We're gonna get started in probably just another minute as some more attendees start flowing through. Hello, everyone. Good morning on the New York side, and good afternoon on the European side, and welcome everyone. My name is Guilherme Gomez. I am Director of Programs at the Urban Design Forum. It may be January 20th, but I'm still gonna wish you all a Happy New Year. We're glad you can join us today for an exciting conversation on safer blocks in Barcelona. In case you're new to the forum, we're an independent membership organization that mobilizes civic leaders to confront defining issues in the built environment. We empower professionals of diverse backgrounds, industries, and perspectives to shape a better future for all New Yorkers. We investigate complex challenges in the built environment, study alternative approaches from cities around the world, and advance progressive strategies to build a more democratic city. A big thanks for the continuing support of our fellows, board of directors, and director circle. Today's presentation and discussion is part of our Streets Ahead initiative. Over the past year, the forum has been exploring ways in which New York City can boldly transform city streets to create connected communities. When COVID-19 hit, we saw how our streets became sites to socialize, dine, exercise, protest, and play. We saw city government respond nimbly by piloting the Open Streets programs, enabling restaurants, businesses, and people to reclaim street space from private vehicles. 2 years have passed and we're still navigating how we can safely live and manage with the virus. Over these 2 years, New York City has a new governor. We recently elected a new mayor and a majority of new city council. At the forum, we're building a brain trust of experts and advocates to dream up new possibilities for the future of our streets through the lenses of climate, commerce, care, culture, and continuity. And this spring, we'll share a suite of new visions and mobilizing ideas for New Yorkers and work with the new administration to shape more people-centered streets. So stay tuned for that. As we continue to organize case studies, render new possibilities, we want to hear from all of you. What people-centered streets should we be looking at? Who should we be speaking to next, both in New York City and of course abroad? Feel free to plug in your thoughts into the chat. We're really excited to have a conversation with you all today. Today, we're so thrilled to organize a conversation with 4 incredible leaders and visionaries in Barcelona and in New York City. Barcelona's recent neighborhood and streetscapes transformations have been really an inspiration to many urbanists around the world. Since 2016, with the launch of its SuperBlocks initiative, or Superillas, Barcelona has reimagined its city streets as a place for people over cars. Traffic was restricted to major roads around the city center, which thus opened up certain neighborhoods to pedestrians and cyclists. City government created a network of safe places to walk and bike that in turn shaped more livable neighborhoods. More recently, during the pandemic, Barcelona has launched Protegim las Escolas, or Protect Our Schools program, a safety program to reduce car traffic and expand play areas around schools, which we'll talk about today. As New York City explores making our open and shared streets more permanent and equitable, we're excited to have two speakers join us to discuss their brilliant approaches to designing and managing the public realm in Barcelona. For today's event, we're excited to have Barcelona City Council's Chief Architect, Xavi Matia, and Deputy Chief Architect, Silvia Martos. After their presentation, I'll ask a few questions before I welcome our invited New York City respondents to join a transatlantic exchange. We'll have Sean Quinn, Assistant Commissioner at the New York City Department of Transportation, and Genesis Abreu, Community and Environmental Justice Leader and Organizer. So let's get started into the conversation. If I can welcome Xavi and Silvia to join me on screen. So let me quickly introduce our two incredible speakers, and then I'll pass the mic to the both of you. Xavi Matia is currently the Chief Architect of Barcelona City Council. He has developed his professional career in different offices of recognized prestige in the field of urban planning, having won several awards and recognitions. He's also an associate professor at the Department of Urbanism and Spatial Planning at the Universitat Politécnica de Catalunya and at the Barcelona Institute of Regional Metropolitan Studies. We have Silvia, who has served as Deputy Chief Architect of Barcelona City Council since March 2021. Her professional career has developed in sustainable mobility planning and management for over 15 years. And since July 2019, she's been the mobility counselor of Sant Martí district in Barcelona and has been really actively involved as an activist in numerous neighborhood-based organizations. So I want to thank the both of you for joining us today. We're really excited and privileged to have you join us to share such visionary and transformative work that you've led in Barcelona. And I'll pass the mic to you to the both of you for your presentation.
Thank you, Guillermo. Hello, everybody. I saw on the chat that there are people with us from all around the world almost. So good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. For us, it's a pleasure to have the opportunity to share with you what we are working on in Barcelona, which is this big transformation public space process that we are right now setting up in the city. So thank you so much for the invitation. May I share, but with me there is also Silvia Casoran from my office. Hi, Silvia. And let me start the presentation. Okay, I think it's okay. Let me just to share a few words about the city of Barcelona, just to understand why are we tackling some specific problems in our city. Barcelona, we could say, it's a big city, but in a small place. It's a city with 1.6 million inhabitants, but occupying only 100 square kilometers. So you can imagine it means a very compact city, a very compact urban fabric, and also a high density level all around the city. So this is a good thing. We are convinced about that, but it also means that we have problem when with more green areas. Barcelona is a city with no larger public spaces. You can see in this picture some of them, basically the mountains surrounding the city. But we could also say that Barcelona is a city of streets. And I think it's very important to know about that because we will talk today about how to improve our streets in our city. So Barcelona is a city of streets. If we want to improve the city conditions, the environmental conditions, if we want to improve or we want to increase spaces for social activities, we need to transform our streets that came from a car model, and we need to change that. So Barcelona, a high density city, very compact urban fabric with a very important lack of green areas all around the city, which are, let me just to talk about briefly about which are the three main challenges that we are trying to to tackle in all of the public space projects and urban projects that we are setting up in the city. The first, we already know that this is a reality. We are on a climate emergency. Barcelona declared the climate emergency last year at the beginning of the year in January. So we used to say that the climate change is our new Olympic Games. We need to organize this new international event in our cities. So we have no option. We need to face the challenge that the climate change generate. So we need to think how to transform, how to make our cities more resilient, to have more capacity to adapt with these very heavy changes that we are really suffering right now, like high temperatures during the summer, some problems with flooding episodes in our cities. So this is the new international event. The second one, we have to work in increasing the balance between city and territory. And I really like this picture, this mural pictures of Ambrogio Lorenzetti in El Palazzo Comunale di Siena that show us how need to be this balance between the things that are happening in the cities and the things that are happening in the territory. And if we want to have better cities with better economy, with more comfortable spaces for people, we also need to improve what is happening in the territory. We could even say that we need to balance cities with our planet. And this is a very, very important issue to take into account what we are working in our cities. Of course, we're working in public space, but also we're working in which are the new development that we need to introduce in our cities. And the third challenge is it's also very important. We need to generate a new balance between the three scales that are present in the city of Barcelona or on another big city around the world. Of course, Barcelona, this kind of cities are global cities and with a global scale, and this is a good thing, but we need to manage what does it mean about the tourism, the pressure of tourism, about the new economies, about how are these new relations between this global scale and the city. And we need basically just to preserve which are the human scale in our cities. So we probably the last decades, these big cities has been really focused in this global scale, how to be more attractive. So from abroad, but we also to recover the feeling with these short distances in the city with this new human scale. And in the middle of these two scales, we have the metropolitan one. This is a challenge probably specific in Barcelona because it's a small city, but with a bigger metropolitan area. We have also the challenge in generate a new, we would say, governability in this new metropolitan. But I think it's very important just to understand that we need to probably make more efforts in this human scale from our cities. And which are the three project criteria that we are applying in this kind of public space projects? And it's very briefly, but I think very powerful ideas. We need to reintroduce the nature in our cities. We need to work for a short distances city. We need to improve the proximity conditions in the different activity between the different activities in our cities. And I think it's very, very important. How are we doing things in city? So we need to engage a new collaborational process in order to take the new decisions that our cities need. When we talk about nature, of course, it means we need to increase the green areas in our cities everywhere on the streets, of course, but also in the architecture. We can see in this picture a new roof garden that was recently awarded by the new European Bauhaus prizes. But I think the most important in the picture is to understand that we need to generate new links between the public space, the new green in public space, but also in the architecture, and trying to generate this continuity between the nature condition in our city. And we can see just at the end of the perspective, the mountain of Montjuic in Barcelona. It also means that we need to generate these connections between the urban nature with the territory nature, with the open spaces in our territory, in order to generate a new infrastructural system truly connected between them. When we are talking about nature, we are also, of course, talking about how are we improving the environmental conditions, how are we improving the water cycle management, how are we improving all the control of the temperature in our city. We'll see later in the project of SuperBlock what does it mean. But when we are talking about nature, we're not talking only about green, we are also talking about how the city is more integrated in this natural condition with the territory. We are also talking about proximity or short distances city. We used to talk about the 15-minute city. Barcelona made a very important effort during the decades of the 80s and 90s in order to provide the different neighborhoods in the city with a group of facilities. We could say that Barcelona is already a 15-minute city. We need to improve this kind of conditions, but we can see this slide, I think, above the map of the different public markets in the city. On the left, on the top of the left, yeah, there is the market of Sant Antoni neighborhood, the SuperBlock, we will see later also. And the map below is the map of the libraries, is the library system in Barcelona. So Barcelona already have a very good facilities, public facilities system all around the city. But probably what is happening in our streets is a challenge in how to connect and how to generate these better conditions in the public space between this facility system in order to reconnect all of them. And of course, when we are talking about proximity, we are talking about housing, essentially about public housing. We have a very important lack in this public housing stock in Barcelona, so we are working really hard in order to increase the amount of public housing, public dwellings that we have in the city, trying to introduce new technological solutions like the one that you can see in this picture. This is the project Aprop that was built with these containers, ships containers that allow us to build the building in a very short period of time in order to be more efficient and in order to provide new public housing. And the third is we need to introduce the collaboration processes. Of course, city is what we are able to do all together. So it's very important that all these kind of transformation processes are followed by a very important collaborative and participatory processes. This is a picture of the first project of SuperBlock in Barcelona in the Poblano neighborhood. And this was the kind of spaces that the city council generated in order to share the proposal and to get feedback and also proposals from the different neighbors in this area. This is a technical diagram that tries to show which are the permanent relation between the technical level with the social, the participatory level, and also the needs of generate this kind of data or indicators that allow us to know which are the impacts that allows us to know if the goals are really reached or not. And we also have a digital platform, very important tool in Barcelona, Decidim. It's a digital platform that allows us to manage all kind of participatory processes that we are making right now in the city. Even it allows us to manage participatory budget every year, and of course all the public space projects have their own space or digital space where everyone can stay, can participate, can generate some debates and make proposals. And let me just to talk about three specific projects. The first one is SuperBlock, probably the most well-known project for you. Probably this is the program or the project that shows better these three conditions, main conditions that we talked before: nature, proximity, and collaboration. Super Barcelona basically comes from the idea that we need to recover space. We need to recover space from cars to give it back to people and to give it back to nature. So we need to generate a new mobility system and a more efficient mobility system, not only in environmental conditions, of course, we need to reduce our air pollution, but we also need to occupy less space with our mobility. So we need a more efficient mobility system that is able to reduce the room that the mobility needs in our public space. So the scheme is really clear. We are shifting from a model where cars and mobility are occupying all the streets of the city in this regular grid that we have in Barcelona, to the second one, when we are able to give priority to public transport, giving priority to biking, giving priority to walking, in order to free up these two streets in this area, just to destinate this new room, these new spaces for increase the urban greenery that we already know that we need a lot of green spaces in Barcelona, but also to generate new spaces for social relations, for social activities in these spaces. This is the main idea of SuperBlock that had a first stage between the 2015 and 2020. In these 4 years, there were launched these 4 or 5 small areas of SuperBlock Barcelona. The first one was SuperBlock in Pompano. This is one of the pictures of this kind of tactical transformations at the beginning, just shifting from this picture where the asphalt and cars occupy the central area of the street to the second one where this tactical action allows people to be able to use these areas for another kind of uses. The second one was in Sant Antoni neighborhood. And here we are able to introduce structural solutions. So we are not using only tactical tools, we are also transforming these spaces with new quality, a new urbanization project that's shifting from an area, it's a crossing area, just in front of the market of Sant Antoni that we saw before. In the second one that you can see, there appear a new green area, new spaces for people to stay or to play or to gathering all together. There's another square in this area of SuperBlock in Sant Antoni. This is a tactical project one that is really successful and where every hour you can find people from different ages. So it's a very interesting space where everybody just meet themselves and play their children, also elderly people staying, or a very, very magical space for us. We are implementing a monitoring protocol that allows us to know which are the data, the impacts that this kind of transformation are generating. And we are, we already know that the impacts are absolutely positive. We are able to reduce the air pollution levels, the noise pollution, also very important levels. We are reducing the amount of cars that are crossing not only the inner areas in the SuperBlock, but also in the perimeter. So we are able to show that we are reducing the need of the cars in the city. So this kind of transformation invites people to change car from other kinds of mobility. And we're also increasing these social activities in these kind of spaces. So we shift from less than 5 social activities in Sant Antonio SuperBlock before the SuperBlock. And after the 2017, we reached more than 30 social activities every year in this area, what shows that it's a very important change for people, the possibility to use this kind of spaces. And the new stage that we launched at the end of 2019, just knowing that the results are absolutely positive, the idea is we want that the entire city of Barcelona becomes a SuperBlock. So the idea is that we will reach in a near future that the whole city is able to develop this kind of transformation in order to generate what we are seeing in this picture, in this slide, is a new environmental infrastructure. So what we want is to reconnect city with a new environmental infrastructure, a new green streets infrastructure that are able to provide new green areas and new social areas, not only in a small areas like was in that 4 years ago, but to the entire city of Barcelona. So what we aim is just to generate a systemic transformation around the city, not only to transform but to improve some small areas. We saw before, this is a picture that shows which is this compact and high density condition of the city of Barcelona, mainly in the central area of the Eixample Cerdà with only cars. So we have detected that we have a priority area of intervention. This is central area of the Eixample, where we have a really important mobility problem. We have calculated that every day are crossing more cars, more than 350,000 cars are crossing every day the central area of the city. That means that are more cars crossing by the middle of the city than the cars that are crossing the city by the roundabouts on the north and on the coast. So there are a lot of cars crossing the city every day. So the environmental impact is absolutely clear. We can see on the right, these red areas are the most air contaminated areas in the city. So we have identified this central area as a priority area of intervention, and we have defined, a new structure in SuperBlock program in the Champla. That means to identify which will be these 21 new green axes that will transform in a systematically way the whole Champla of Barcelona, generating this new system of new streets, and also discovering in these crossing areas, these red squares that you can see in the picture, that will become also these new 21 squares in these crossing areas of the Champla. So the idea is how can we approach the green areas to the whole population, and the goal is to be able that everyone living in the Champla having a green axis in a distance lower than 200 meters of every home. We will increase more than 6 hectares of the urban greenery in this area. And beyond the green axis, what we can find is that this new mobility system, where these green axes basically are thought just to avoid that the cars are able to cross the entire street. So we are just generating this kind of turn the left and turn the right mechanisms in order to avoid that the cars be able to cross the street. So this is the mechanism that allows us to reduce the amount of cars that are crossing these areas every day. And these are the 8 first projects that we are currently finishing at the moment. So we are expecting to start the construction of this new axis next summer and finishing it at the beginning of 2023. And the idea you can see in the picture is to unfold the transformation that was started in Sant Antoni SuperBlock, just unfolded to the middle of the Champla, just arriving to all the neighborhoods that are in this area. This is the idea about how we think that should be the new 21st century street. This is the current street in Barcelona, coming from the 20th century. And this is the 5 principles that we are proposing in this transformation. So the new streets should be first, a new environmental infrastructure. I saw it before. So we are talking that we need to understand that the street is a 3D space. It's more important. We have a surface, but we have also an underground and subsoil, and also we have air. So we need to understand that the 3 different levels of the street are absolutely essential and important in order to improve the environmental conditions, in order to improve the water cycle management, in order to improve the green, in order to generate more shadows in our city. That is absolutely necessary in a Mediterranean city. But it's also very important, the second one, that this kind of naturalization must be also a transformation in order to promote the social activity, and very important, the relation between the ground floor and the street. For us, it's very important, and we think this is a very essential condition of the Mediterranean cities, the relation between the inner spaces and the outer spaces, between the public realm and the private realm. So this kind of transformations also aims to generate this kind of relations between retailers that are occupying this kind of ground floors, and also facilities, and also improving the conditions, environmental conditions, in order to make this filter on the facade with these balconies, in order to
Hey everyone, I think we lost Xavi for just a moment. He might be having some issues on their side, on the Barcelona side. Silvia, if he doesn't rejoin in just a moment, would you want to hop on and take over for the presentation? I think he's frozen on your side too, right?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
No problem about me.
We have the both of you.
Let's wait for a few seconds. What do you think?
That sounds good. Yeah, we can wait another 30 more seconds.
Okay. I will find the presentation and the slide where he was going.
Terrific. In the meantime, I see a ton of questions flowing through, so I definitely welcome any specific questions for our speakers, and then upcoming our respondents will join us shortly in the Q&A box. It kind of helps us kind of follow through questions. But I'm loving the dialogue and conversation about different street treatments and community engagement processes, and we're really excited to dig into that shortly into the conversation. So I might be having some issues. If feel free to kind of take the microphone if you want, Silvia, in the presentation if we have it available.
Okay, no problem. I will share my screen then.
Perfect.
And try to get back where Xavier was going. But fast, right? Because we've got just a few minutes.
Yes.
Guillermo, can you see my screen?
Yes, I see it. Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
so,
I'm here. I'm here again.
Ah, okay,
so
okay, Xavier.
I lost connection. I don't know why. Sorry so much. I will try to continue with the presentation. Are you showing the presentation,
Okay,
Silvia?
okay, I'll do that. Okay.
May I say you next slide, please. Next. Okay, let me finish with this one. And I was talking about, I think I lost connection when we're talking about proximity, but I think you can understand it easily about innovation, new materials, landscape. We need to generate this or maintain this landscape and the history that throughout the landscape and heritage we have in our cities. Of course, we need to maintain and to guarantee the accessibility of urban services, urban good distribution, and so on. So we can next. Yes, this is pictures that showing which are the projects that we are currently working on about these environmental conditions, the 3D dimension of the city, the importance of the subsoil and the different solutions about the water cycle management. Next. And this is a picture that shows which will be the transformation. This is a picture of one of these streets in the Champlain, and we can see in the picture which was this tactical action that we set up during the lockdown in order to take a step ahead in order to approach to the final transformation. So we reduce one of the car lanes existing there, and we're trying to increase the pavement, and the final picture show us which will be the final transformation. We can pass to the next slide. Okay, this will be. So we are expecting to have these new streets at the beginning of next year. So we can go on. Next, this is the idea of the transformation of these crossing areas, these asphalt crossing areas in the Champa that have a surface of about 2,000 square meters, that are the same surface that have the different neighborhoods squares in city of Barcelona. And the next slide show us a diagram of this kind of transformation, shifting from only car square with only asphalt with this new green transformation. Okay, next. I will try to be brief. And this is one of the projects, of course, that will be executed during the next years. It's a kind of how to generate new nature races in the middle of these crossing areas. Okay, next one. This is the monitoring protocol. We talked before. It's very important to generate the knowledge about which are the conditions that are changing with this kind of transformations. We can come back after if you are interested in some of the questions. Okay. Okay. Let us show just. I think there are 3 slides about this. The second project is Pla de Barris, a Barcelona neighborhoods plan, and it's a very specific project that basically tried to concentrate budget in those neighborhoods with the highest vulnerability level. So the next slide show us which is the map of vulnerability in the metropolitan area in Barcelona. The red colors indicates the areas that have social, economical, and people indicators that show us that are more vulnerable. So the idea of this plan is to concentrate budget in public space, in social policies, in economical policies, in order to shift the conditions and to generate new dynamics in this neighborhood. So I think these are the different neighborhoods that has been selected by this indicator of urban vulnerability. And there are some of the pictures of these peripheral neighborhoods that have been developing this kind of projects those years. so we can change. And these are the different kind of project that has been setting up. We're talking also about education and health and public health system, about the social programs, dwellings. We are also improving the rehabilitation of different housing stock in energetical way and so on, economical programs. So this is a very transversal program. Just concentrate a very important amount of budget every year in this kind of neighborhoods. So I think we can pass to the next, and just briefly, the third project is Let's Protect the Schools. Guillermo told at the beginning. This is a very strategical program, because if we can identify which is the maps of schools in the city of Barcelona, we could say that it's a kind of acupuncture map. So there are very, very hot points that if we are able to improve the public space surrounding all of the schools, we will be able to improve the whole public space in the city. And schools have the opportunity that everyone understands that you need to improve the conditions in front of the school. That is where our kids spend most of their time. So it's very important. It's very useful tactical approach, because there is no one complaining why you are reducing car lanes in front of a car, or why are you reducing the speed in front of the school, or why are you reducing the speed in front of a school. So the idea of this program is, with tactical interventions, how to increase the space for people, how to generate better security conditions, how to reduce the speed, and how to introduce this kind of more comfortable areas for people, not only for kids, but also for neighborhoods. This is the map. The idea is we need to increase the space in front of the schools. And we used to say that we want to generate a new square in front of every school door in the city. We can next slide. If we have some pictures. It was very useful, because during the pandemic situation, this increase of room in front of the schools has been very useful for families, and they are always occupying this kind of spaces with different conditions. Also for the junks, very, very interesting spaces. Okay, we can pass different slides to this picture. And this is the map what we are just obtaining through this kind of projects. We are introducing new bike lanes, we are reducing car lanes, we are introducing also radars to control the speed, the car speed in the city. So Protegir las Escolas, Let's Protect the School is a very, very useful program in order to improve the public space conditions. We find it's also very important to make more visible the schools in the city. Our mayor, Ada Colau, always says that in a city it's really easy to know where there is a parking lot, because there are a huge blue P. You can see it from a very long distance, but you are not able to identify where is a school. So the idea is to generate these new carpets, school carpets, just to indicate all the cars that they are crossing a street with a school. And we are also working with different design and architectural schools in the city with shared programs in order to innovate in different playing areas or staying areas, introducing new materials and new solutions with different European programs that we are setting up during this month. We can see different solutions with different materials. And there is a website where you can find deeper information about the program of Protegir las Escolas. And I think that's okay. And let me finish with this picture just to invite you. Barcelona was selected last July like the world architectural capital the next year, 2026, and also we'll be hosting the UEA World Congress. So you are all invited always in Barcelona, but especially the next year, 2026. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Xavi. Impressive presentation. It's incredible to see such comprehensive work around the public realm and the built environment in Barcelona. I'd love to welcome our two respondents. I want to jump into a nice conversation for the remainder of the event. Really want to welcome an exchange between both cities. If I can welcome Sean and Genesis to join us, and Silvia to join us as well. Let me just quickly give an introduction to Sean and Genesis. Before kind of passing it to the mic with them, they have a couple of kind of responses they'd love to include in the discussion. Sean Quinn is Assistant Commissioner of Street Improvement Programs of the New York City Department of Transportation. And we also have Genesis Abudo, who's a community organizer and researcher and is currently Youth Environmental Leadership Program Manager at Futures Ignite. So welcome both of you. We're really delighted to have you both join the discussion. Again, I know Silvia and Xavi really expressed they want this to be an exchange. So as the conversation kind of flows through, feel free to pose back and forth. So let's get into it. Maybe we can first pass the mic to you, Sean. You've been leading street improvement projects across the city, from pedestrian and bike networks to neighborhood plazas. I really want to welcome you to highlight maybe one or two projects or approaches that you found successful over the years, and what has been helpful looking at Barcelona as a case study in order to guide and improve the programs New York City is planning to lead in the coming years.
Sure, great, and thanks for having me. That was truly a great presentation, and of course, we're always looking to Barcelona for inspiration for how we can transform our streets in New York City. I think a lot of the work we've done recently, particularly during the pandemic with our Open Streets program and our bike boulevards, was sort of inspired by some of the work around SuperBlocks and the work that you're now doing in front of schools. I think, you know, I would point to Open Streets as our clearest example, Open Streets and Bike Boulevards as our clearest examples of how we can really rethink New York City streets. The pandemic gave us this opportunity to quickly change streets and really turn them back over to the residents and people in neighborhoods who needed space to get outside and social distance. And then from there, turning them into real neighborhood streets as the pandemic subsided. Again, not quite subsided, but as things change, we work to program those open streets. We put activations out there. We worked with local schools and community partners to make the streets more than just a space to walk and hang out, but spaces that are truly community centers. The evolution of that program is really working with neighborhoods to connect different open streets on the Upper West Side, in North Brooklyn and South Bronx, in different parts of Brooklyn, Manhattan, Lower East Side, all along Broadway. How can we connect the series of those streets into something that does look like a neighborhood superblock or does look like a car-free experience for a larger set of a neighborhood, while sort of pushing some of the other activity outside of those streets? So sort of what started as a little bit of a piecemeal approach has started to coalesce into a more neighborhood focused and approach, where we're also looking at how we can integrate the bike network into those streets, how we can integrate more activations. We have to be paying attention, of course, to access and deliveries and things like that. But I think having our community partners on the ground and having these conversations is really helping us to sort of inform what that next phase of our Open Streets program will look like. And just quickly on our bike boulevards, we've put in 4 new bike boulevards across the city. Those are all on former open streets that we evolved into a bike boulevard. So there we used materials a little bit heavier than you know, the movable barricades that we have on a lot of our open streets, and actually put some streetscape changes down, changing street directions, converting streets to one-ways, preventing through access for vehicles while maintaining access for cyclists and pedestrians. That's a model we want to continue to spread across the city, and it's something that we're doing on more and more of our open streets, not just for bike boulevards, but adding physical elements beyond just the barricades to make the open streets more of a 24/7 experience. So a lot of groundwork laid during the pandemic, a lot of work to still do, but we really are evolving the program into something that's hopefully, you know, gets to the scale and matches the work that's been done in Barcelona. But I think we're, you know, I hope people also agree that we're making good progress on really transforming a lot of these neighborhoods through that program.
Thank you, Sean. Really excited to see the work evolve that you've been leading and your team has been leading. Let's turn it to you, Genesis. You've worked with youth leaders on advocating for environmentally just neighborhoods. I know you have a particular experience with envisioning new streets in New York through your work with youth on the Clean Air Green Corridor. I'm wondering if you could tell us a little bit about the project, and then I'd love to hear your thoughts on Barcelona's transformative work in the presentation that Xavi shared today, specifically on how you're thinking about the role community residents should have in planning of our streets and public spaces.
Yeah, thank you so much for inviting us and letting us talk about our project. So yeah, as Guillermo said, I work with young people in Washington Heights, particularly on the Clean Air Green Corridor, which is a Black and Brown youth-led initiative with the ultimate vision for increasing open and green spaces in our neighborhood of Washington Heights. And we're starting first with the transformation of 182nd Street, which has 6 schools, and we want to transform it into this safe, car-free green space that celebrates students, families, street vendors, small businesses, our whole neighborhood really as a whole, and celebrate that culture of Washington Heights without displacing, right, our neighbors. And so for us, we believe that through like youth leadership and participatory community design, our young people are really challenging, right, the centuries of intentional systemic exclusion from decision-making processes and conversations that are related to land use in our community, and reimagining how sidewalks and streetscapes around schools can turn into hubs for place-based learning, for building community connections, climate change resiliency, and even grassroots community action. And so to hear some of the work that's happening with the SuperBlocks and Let's Protect Schools initiative in Barcelona, you know, for me, like really connected with a lot of the work that we're doing with our young people. And I think for these programs, especially to be successful here in New York City, has a lot to do with how we're engaging community in these processes for participatory planning, and not just as an afterthought and not just as like a tokenism portion, but really how are we incorporating community from start to finish with the ideation process to the actual like implementation process, and really hear what people have to say and be intentional on how we're engaging with community. And I think our Open Streets program can become that with really intentional community engagement strategies. And I think I'd love to learn more from our Barcelona folks, like what did that engagement process look like from start to finish? And what were some of those strategies used to ensure that a big chunk of the community was really a part of the visions, right, for SuperBlocks and Let's Protect Schools initiative.
Thank you, Genesis. Let's get into the discussion. I want to open it up specifically on that topic, if we can start on with process. We've talked a lot about kind of the importance of community-led design efforts and processes. Xavi and Silvia, what types of tools or models or strategies for community engagement have you found most successful for ensuring equitable input on the future of streets or public spaces in a specific neighborhood, or really kind of throughout the city as well?
Should I start?
Yes.
Well, in our experience, what is the most effective is to involve, of course, the community from the first moment. And in fact, with SuperBlocks projects, we are taking a lot of time not to really, before we start changing the streets, we discuss a lot with the neighbors. Of course, not everyone is involved because not all the neighbors are curious about it or interested before the changes. But nowadays, the SuperBlocks project is getting many people involved in the discussions. Also, we talk to anyone, not only to the neighbors that are in favor, but to all the sectors, not to the delivery, to the retails, of course, with all the emergency services, of course, the cleaning service. I mean, everyone is involved in the discussion of how the new street should be. And of course, we had many problems with the first SuperBlock in Poblenou, with the pilot one that was 5 years ago. But after 5 years, or even after 2 years, everyone could understand that it was a good change. So it was also a good thing to have a pilot to really make people understand what could we could we do with the new public space that was generated for people? And nowadays we see that everyone is asking for a SuperBlock in their neighborhood. In fact, with the participatory budget, we got many demands on new SuperBlocks, also on new protected schools, also new bike lanes. So the citizens are asking for more and more actions on sustainable mobility, and because they understand that we've got real problems in the city, as Xavi mentioned, not only the climate emergency, which is the one that is like further away. It's not, because this last summer, no, in Canada, and also in the States, we got people that died, no, because of the heat waves directly. But of course, we've got air breathing problems here, many acoustic problems in Barcelona, and of course, many accidents. We've got more than 10,000 accidents per year in Barcelona city. So that's a big issue. Everyone is demanding for a better environment and quality of life to keep in Barcelona.
Yes, I will add to Sylvia that I think it's very important to be absolutely transparent in this kind of projects. This is essential. Usually people is not complaining because they want to decide something. Usually they are complaining because they don't have enough information about how it will change their lives. And this is a kind of project that is changing the behaviors of people. So it's very important just to understand that, of course, we need enough time to make everyone understand that they will change their lives, their style lives in this kind of transformation. And it's very interesting, like Sylvia told, that these 5 years since the first experience in SuperBlock, how the people has changed the approach to this kind of project. If they have all the information, they are knowing every day that what will change. If you are managing with them all together different solutions, for instance, it's very important, the retail associations that we are spending a lot of time working with them, how will be the solution of the urban goods distributions in order to generate a new order. So it's very important to identify which will be these different problems that will be generated with this kind of transformation in order to anticipate and to work together with the stakeholders that are involved in this kind of. But basically, I think it's very important to be absolutely transparent. I think it's very important to have the information about the impacts. I talked many times about the indicators, because in front of every complaining coming from people that is not living in these neighborhoods, but there are different lobbies with another kind of interest in city, it's absolutely essential to have a good information about that we are improving environmental solutions, that we are increasing the social activities in public space. So have good data is very, very important in order to continue with this kind of projects.
Thanks both. I have a question for another one for Xavi and Sylvia and you, Sean. The three of you work in city government, and this is more kind of a conversation on managing citywide goals and neighborhood input. How do you navigate kind of the challenges of those two scales of balancing kind of neighborhood voices and citywide goals? I imagine that becomes a bigger challenge with implementing, especially network design, especially for bikeways or pedestrian ways. I don't know if you can each kind of share those two approaches on managing those two scales in the planning process. Happy to open up to you, Sean, first, and then maybe to Xavi and Sylvia, if one of you want to kind of speak on that.
Yeah, I think the fact that we've been able to do so much, we had over 100 miles of open streets in the past year, I think touching neighborhoods throughout the city that haven't seen this type of investment before, has really changed the conversation from a government perspective. There were a lot of neighborhoods that fought back against this type of work that we've been doing for decades, that now during the pandemic and after the pandemic were sort of begging for us to do more. So that in a way, the momentum that we gained during the pandemic was sort of a blessing into getting things across the finish line, so much so that many of our politicians and elected officials, especially in the new council, have pressed us to do more and helped us find the resources to do that. So I think, you know, there's still some challenges out there from people who have asked, you know, even on our most successful open street, which you could see in the chat, has been the 34th Avenue open street in Jackson Heights. That has transformed the neighborhood and transformed lives there. And there's still folks that are anti the project that we listen to their concerns, but generally our priority here is to create the best space that we can in those neighborhoods. So I think just having these things on the street and having these transformations in the public eye has really helped the process from our end to get more done overall.
Yeah, I would say in Barcelona, we have a very important challenge between these two scales that you told, Guillermo, between the local scale and the city or metropolitan scale. And our most important problem is we have only a municipality government with a small city within a metropolitan area that is with another kind of different government or different municipalities. And we don't have a metropolitan government right now in Barcelona. This is a very important problem for us. So because we understand that we need to push into different processes of transformation. The one is public space that we are talking about, but we also need to improve our metropolitan public transport system. But the metropolitan public transport system depends on another kind of administration, a regional and government, central government administration. So we are working transformation public space, but also pushing and collaborating with another administrations in order to provide this new public transport that allow us to reduce the need of car in our city. This is a very important issue that it's an open debate in the city right now. But we think that we shouldn't stop transforming public space. Otherwise, if we are transforming public space, we'll be able to push to the different administrations to improve the metropolitan public transport system.
Thanks, Xavi. Sean, I want to plug in a question here from one of our Urban Design Forum fellows, actually from Crystal Exia, on interagency collaboration. I'm kind of curious to hear from the Barcelona side. It seems like that many different agencies have worked together in coordinated efforts to kind of oversee these projects, especially knowing the relation to different services and kind of different ownership and maintenance of different projects throughout the city. What was the process like around that coordination between different agencies or offices on these public realm projects?
In Barcelona, Guillermo?
Barcelona, yeah.
The different offices, sorry, you talk about the offices, different governments, local government and regional government.
Yeah, the process around that on kind of overseeing implementation and especially kind of the planning phase as well.
Yeah, the programs that we talked before, like SuperBlock or Let's Protect School, is absolutely on charge of city council government, of course. And we have different other projects around the city. There are different periods that with better relations between the different administrations in Spain and other not so good. Right now, we have a really good relation, and what we usually do is to create different offices shared between the different teams of the different administration in order to manage this kind of specific projects. Within the city council, it's very important because we have, I think it was 4 years ago, under the same area in the city council, we have the mobility service, the ecological area, and also the urban model, our area. So there is also a very important challenge within the city council itself to generate these transversal conditions and this transversal culture of the projects that are absolutely essential in order to generate this kind of projects that are not only about architecture, but also about the infrastructure, water, environmental conditions, and also mobility. So SuperBlock program specifically have a special office with people coming from the different teams of the city council that's working all together in the same way. We think it's also a very, very important way of work in order to be able to define good integral projects in this kind of transformations.
Yeah, and I would like to add as well that the mobility plan of 2013 was already defining the SuperBlocks, and it was approved by the politicians. So it's like when this kind of planning is already approved by the politicians, it's supposed that we've got the consensus not to go through. Though we, of course, we have many problems also with the opposition parties, that they always try to find some mistakes wherever. But the consensus is there, and it's the way the city. I mean, cities in all the world, I think we are all doing in the end the same work, the same kind of work, to improve the habitability, and the livability of our cities, because we know the impacts, as Xavi says, is very important to get to know how many people are dying every year because of this and because of that, and we know that, so we need to act.
Terrific. Thank you, Xavi and Silvia. So I want to respect your time, all of your times and your days. I know we're 2 minutes over, but I really wanted just to kind of carve out the final few minutes here as an opportunity to exchange some questions to each other. It's always nice to bring two cities together in conversation. So I want to welcome and open up the space. If you have any specific questions to pose to one each other, I don't know if Barcelona has a question for New York City side or vice versa. I'll open up the space right now.
Well, no, just a few words. I think it's very important just to realize that all the cities, specifically New York City and Barcelona, are facing the same challenges. I think it's absolutely important. Every city try to do what is possible in different cases and possibilities, but the most important is I think that kind of construction of a new urban paradigm, we could say, in a new environmental approach and a new social approach is unstoppable all around the world, I think. And it's very important to have the opportunity to share which are the problems, which are also the success in our projects. But the most important is to work together, the different cities that have put this kind of challenges in our agenda, in order to generate a broader movement that is able to generate a new culture in the city in front of different powers, economical powers or carbon powers, we could say also, that are still just stopping with that kind of transformation. So it's really delightful to know that in New York are also working this kind of transformation with open streets, with this kind of very well-known and very inspiring transformations in your streets and your mobility. And I think the most important is to be able to learn from each other in order to improve the solutions and to generate a new movement, international movement to generate new cities and best cities.
Yeah, I totally agree with that as well. I think, the open street model and the work that we're doing and that you're doing in Barcelona really needs to be framed as a way to reduce car ownership, reduce vehicle miles traveled, increase our environmental sustainability as a city as a whole, mode shift people onto cycling and pedestrian walking, really be thinking about the 15-minute city, really sort of packaging all this stuff. It's not just something nice for the people who live on that street, but it's a bigger, broader package of changes that can be transformational from the environmental impacts down to just people's health and well-being. Putting that all together really helps sell the projects and helps us to do more overall.
Well, I really want to say that in Barcelona, many years ago, we were looking at New York with your tactical interventions. So when we started with the SuperBlocks, we were really inspired also by you. So just keep on working as well, so we can inspire each other. And about the social engagement that Genesis was saying, in the end, that's the biggest impact in the streets. When we talk about SuperBlocks or about protect the schools, the biggest impact is to see how the people really appropriate from the public space and how they generate a community just by the new space that they've got. And that's the nicest thing that we can do in the cities.
Genesis with the last word.
Yeah, I think, COVID-19 and the global pandemic have really reaffirmed our connection to one another and really has allowed us to kind of disrupt the status quo and really imagine different possibilities. And I think this exchange has really even inspired me on some ideas that I want to bring back to our young people and show this case study of what Barcelona is doing, and kind of keep that momentum going and really continue to do this work.
Thanks so much, Genesis. Okay, so unfortunately we're out of time. I want to really thank Xavi and Silvia for sharing the exciting work you all been leading in Barcelona. It's one of the most inspiring cities I've ever visited, and always encouraging other cities around the world to think more ambitiously and equitably about the public realm. I also want to thank our two inspiring leaders for joining us, Genesis Abreu and Sean Quinn. And of course, I want to thank you all for tuning in, our fellows and friends, and for asking such terrific questions that we couldn't even touch on because we were short for time. And of course, my colleague and co-pilot Martha Snow for her background technical support today. Again, we want to thank our fellows, board of directors, and directors circle for their continuous support at the Urban Design Forum. Stay tuned for more events in the coming weeks from our Streets Ahead initiative. And if you have projects or plans you'd like to discuss with us, please feel free to reach out to us at the forum. Thank you again and have such a great afternoon.
Thanks, everyone.
Until next time.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye. See you.